So Google surprised us with two Nexus devices this year. You have the Nexus 6P aimed at the more premium market, and then you have the Nexus 5X, which is a close relative to the Nexus 5. It's more on the cost-friendly side, coming in at $379 for the 16GB and $429 for the 32GB model. It's available in 3 colors, including white, black, and mint green. In order to keep the cost down, they had to make several cuts without laying a ton of people off. And the first is build quality. The Nexus 5X feels cheap as hell. The buttons do stick out, but they feel kinda dinky. It's made entirely of plastic, and there's no type of heft to this thing at all. But despite feeling like a Hot Wheels, the buttons are actually still really tactile and super responsive. If you're looking for something other than this, then you should be looking at the Nexus 6P with its all-metal design. The 5X isn't meant for people that want a premium phone. It's meant for people on a smaller budget, but still want the stock Google experience with those faster than Michael Johnson updates. The 5X's design gives me a reminiscent feeling of my old red Nexus 5 and how much I love that damn phone. Being made of plastic makes it super light, which in return makes it easier to manage, especially with its smaller form factor and keeping that original 5-inch display. So what does all that mean? Well, it means that one-handed manageability is on point with this phone. You can definitely tell though that it's made by LG with its striking resemblance to the Nexus 5 all the way down to the branding on the back and that smooth, almost hollow plastic. In the end, using this thing in the hand still feels great even if it feels like a toy. For your multimedia pleasure, it features a front-facing speaker, and it's not speakers. It does get moderately loud though, providing decent audio when watching videos or movies or even listening to a song or two. The display itself has also been improved from the Nexus 5, making for a slightly better media experience. Though it's not the gorgeous Quad HD panel found on the Nexus 6P, it's still a sharp IPS 1080p panel that has been improved from the Nexus 5. IPS means you're going to get great outdoor visibility, pretty decent viewing angles, although there is definitely some shifting going on, and with this particular panel, you're going to get warmer whites. But as I say that, just take into consideration that orangish yellowish look that you see on the screen is from my ND filter. Text is also nice and crispy, and despite not having the highest resolution, you're going to have a tough time telling the difference. But I really don't want to get into a pissing contest with anybody about 1080p versus Quad HD on a mobile phone. Just know that if you put this directly next to like a Note 5 or an S6, yeah, you might notice a small difference in sharpness, but it's something that you should not take into consideration when buying a phone of this caliber. It's still a great display. The oleophobic coating on this phone is actually really good, but it does use Gorilla Glass 3 rather than 4 for protection. But in any case, it's always a good idea to buy some glass to save your ass, so make sure you hit up Amazon for a tempered glass screen protector. Color reproduction testing was actually really good. You can see the color spectrum here as well as different levels of contrast, saturation, whites and blacks. Not the best, but far from the worst. That circle. Yeah, that's a fingerprint scanner and it's really awesome. It's extremely responsive, though not the quickest in terms of unlocking your device, but I don't blame the fingerprint scanner. The accuracy itself is amazing and the position of it is actually on point, even though I thought it was going to be awkward. The only downside is you have to pick up your phone every time to use it, but hell, I guess that's just sheer laziness and wrong for me to complain about. I do love the integration of the fingerprint scanner with Android M, making more apps utilize this capability, and it just runs fantastic, so I have nothing to complain about the security features of the Nexus 5X. Just using this phone as a phone making phone calls, sending texts was just a normal thing for me. I mean, it wasn't any better or any worse than any of my other phones, which is a good thing. But I also didn't notice any overheating with this phone, even during gameplay, which leads me into talking about its performance. Another way they could actually reduce the cost of the Nexus 5X is by giving it a smaller processor, and they went with the Snapdragon 808, 2GB of RAM, and of course the Adreno 418 to go with that Snapdragon processor, and even though it doesn't have the highest specs on the market, it still runs fantastic. I mean, I'm not a huge mobile gamer. I don't play high intense games on my phone. I just A, don't have the time, and B, I have a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox, so why even bother? But when I did experience some gameplay, just testing out the phone, it ran buttery smooth, no loss of frame rates, and everything was super responsive. And that can be said with multitasking and just your day-to-day task as well. I mean, having a smaller processor has its benefits. I mean, A, you don't have to worry about overheating, but also you should get better battery life, which I'll talk about in a minute. And with scores like this, who needs a top-end processor? I mean, it's still great and it performs awesome. But I mean, ultimately it comes down to software. And the Nexuses are running the Android M, which is Marshmallow, and it's the latest version of Android that Google has released, and it's their best yet by far. It's fixed a lot of bugs that were found in Lollipop, improving battery performance, and also adding a few features here and there. I mean, cosmetically, really nothing has changed from Lollipop, but in terms of performance, this thing is buttery smooth and it lags a lot less than Lollipop ever did. Plus, the few features they have actually added are pretty useful, and Google Now on Tap is bomb. I mean, I love Google Now on Tap. Google Now is awesome, but now that you have it on tap, it's like having a beer in a bottle versus a beer on tap. Google Now on tap gives you information and places to get more information about what is currently being displayed on your screen. Pretty awesome, right? Well, check this out. I was tinkering around a little bit and I found where some stores actually have it set up to give you a three-dimensional look into their store. That is bomb. You can walk around and actually see what is on their shelves and the location of the items before you even get to the store. Yeah, so my mind was definitely blown with this, and hopefully I'm not the only one. What this means is things like this with Google Cardboard will let you shop in the store while you're not at the store. Also with Android M, I love the ability to switch keyboards on the fly without having to pull down your notification center to access this. And they've also improved the camera UI. I mean, it's ever so slightly, but it's still nonetheless improved. I mean, swiping left and right will take you to video or photo mode, and you have your basic things like photosphere, panorama, lens blur, and then if you go into settings, you can see the resolution is 12.2 megapixels, and of course, when it comes to video, you have the ability to capture 4K. When it comes to the front-facing camera, however, it's only 1080p, and you don't get any kind of stabilization with this phone, and it's also only capable of capturing 120 frames per second. In terms of battery, it's only a 2700 milliamp hour battery and performance isn't the best. I was only able to get about 2 hours of screen on time, but just keep in mind, I'm also using the hell out of this phone. For an average user, you probably would get about 3 to 3.5 hours. And I'm also keeping all the gizmos and gadgets turned on, as well as the tap and sync feature. So again, just take that with a grain of salt. You don't get any wireless charging, but you do get some fast charging, which is way better in my personal opinion. So finally, I'm going to leave you guys with some camera samples from the rear and front facing camera in 4K and full resolution. So make sure you guys like, tweet, comment, share, follow, sub, but don't fart, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye, Felicias. Testing out the front-facing camera on the Nexus 5X. I actually don't know where to look. Crap. Just run another quick test of the Nexus 5X. This is pretty low light. I mean, I have pretty dark tint on my windows. Hardly any light is getting in my car. Plus the sun's going down. And of course, my, map light just went off.